Hey there, my name is OZEA and I'll have the pleasure of walking you through this guided reality check/mindfulness exercise. I don't know about you, but my mind is full for sure. Also, you might be wondering why your mindfulness instructor is wearing a bike helmet. Well, because it is going to be one hell of a ride. Please make use of the yoga mattress in front of you and find a position in which you feel comfortable and relaxed. We're going to start by taking a deep breath in and a deep breath out. Isn't it funny that humans can unlearn the first thing they did after being birthed, breathing? It really is an interesting phenomenon you guys have to deal with. Are you seeing the boxing glove in front of you? You may punch the pillow if you feel like it while listening to some statistics. The Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation conducted a study in 2017 about the world's mental state, and that, my dear friends, was before Miss Rona came over. This study suggested that 10.7% of the world's population suffers from any sort of mental illness, from depression to alcohol use disorder. And you know, well, actually I at least know how science goes. This is an estimated number. So probably it is more something like 24%. Let's just go with 10.7%. Every 10th person in the supermarket or the metro suffers from a severe mental disorder, and still people that deal with any sort of mental illness are being portrayed and perceived as lazy, unwilling, unmotivated, crazy, and maybe even not lovable and bearable. You may wonder how all of this is connected to your inability to breathe. You live in a system which prioritizes numbers over people, even though you officially live in a region that values human rights. Since 2014, more than 20,000 bodies of refugees trying to come to Europe were found in the Mediterranean Sea, according to the UN Organization for Migration. This is a known fact, but the media outrage is objectively low. The ongoing collective chasing of the American dream being still so omnipresent in working class and pop culture, whilst there also being an actual American nightmare present in form of an unemployment rate of 6.7% in the United States, a worldwide estimated 20% of inadequately housed humans, and a current 1 in 4 odds of falling victim to sexual harassment when being a woman. I didn't even start mentioning institutionalized racism, homophobia, and all the other so-called phobias. And all of that while 1.5 million houses are empty in the US and 1.3 billion tons of food being tossed away each year globally. We have reached a point where demanding food, shelter, and safety for everyone is considered controversial and radical. Some 44-year-old white Republican podcast producer in the States is using the word socialist as an insult right in this very moment. Cute. Enough punching. Let's take another deep breath in and another deep breath out. I wish I could give you actual exercises that will minimize your stress. But from a long-term perspective, it is more logical to tackle the problem at the root. Especially because you are not the only one who has trouble breathing, concentrating, having anxiety attacks, etc. You guys collectively have those problems, so you have to collectively solve them. As long as you are living in an environment where the majority of people is already dreaming of the next vacation because work is so tiring, while Jeff Bezos is sitting on $129 billion being busy violating workers' rights, I can quite frankly tell you that there's a problem. Basically, what I'm trying to tell you is that your Earth is pretty fucked, particularly thanks to a lot of dudes from Europe. Your generation has the opportunity to disrupt current unfair systems which are still supported by the results of the transnational slave trade, the burning of witches, and so on. Most of your world's problems are systematical and strategic, from climate change to child abuse. You humans are valuing rationality in the wrong areas, but anyways, have a look in the mirror in front of you. How do you feel about what you see? 25,000 years ago, a voluptuous bodies, big breasts and wide hips to be able to bear a lot of children was considered to be the ideal body. In ancient Greece, large breasts, wide hips, a full stomach and a symmetric face was aimed at. During the Renaissance, curvy bodies, pale skin with blushed faces were the fantasy. In the Victorian era, women were taught to dress modestly and without any personal expression. A pale, sick look was seen as beautiful. In the 1910s, the Gibson girl, drawn inspired by the fantasy of Charles Dana Gibson, represented a girl with soft skin, small waist by the help of corsets, a curvy bottom, long neck and a flawless cherry-shaped face. In the 1920s, the fabulous flappers were trendy, no more corsets. Androgynous looks with small chests and shorter hair was what was wanted at the time. Flappers were women who rebelled against the Gibson girl by intentionally creating a flatter figure in contrast to the corset-curved previous ideal. In the Great Depression at the end of the 20s, fashion was no priority, but because of the lack of resources and the food rationing, a fuller figure got back in trend because thin bodies were associated with starvation. Fashion and beauty standards in the 1940s, just like everything else, were influenced by World War II, and everything became more angular. The figures reflected the reality of rationing in harder times with a slender, leaner look. In the 1950s, the hourglass figure with big breasts and a curvy bottom became trendy, influenced by a stronger economy and scandals around leaked nude photos of actresses. 1980s, a tall and athletic physique was widely desired, whereas in the 90s, the heroine look, consisting of a pale skin, bone-showing body inspired, as the name states, by heroin addicts. From a tanned, flat athletic body, ideal body in the 2000s, to Kim Kardashian getting praised for what black women have always embodied. Bigger butts, fuller lips, braided hair, let alone the last 20 years have seen it all. The conclusion is, if you are not being considered good looking today, just wait a decade, you probably will by then. And now for real. Most of the female beauty standards do not stem from the image of actual woman, but rather come from the imagination of men. And the idea that a man has to be tall, muscular, have just the right amount of body hair and have a big dick is also very toxic and limiting in a lot of ways. Beauty ideals are mirroring social events and are temporary. And so should be your feeling of not being enough. Feel over your hands, feel every single finger, and once you've reached the third finger from the right side of your right hand, single it out and form a fist with the rest of your right hand. Yes, my dear, you just formed a middle finger. And you are going to show it to every corporation that wants to profit from your insecurities. And just like any other mindfulness instructor out there would like to remind you, that bodies first and foremost are there to get you places. A more neutral approach to one's own hardware would probably be quite efficient. Maybe it's time to take another deep breath. Okay, let's go. So here's my theory. Humans are very much like USB sticks. They come nice and empty, full of potential, and then they are being fed with information. Initially your caregivers, and then later on society bombards you with information. How to behave, how to look, what to like, heck, even what to dream. You most probably underwent something called school, where the 3-option concept is written big. First option is bad. For example, dictatorship. Second option went a bit too far. For example, communism, so you settle for the middle, democracy. This concept can be found in trading as well and is widely known as the Harvard concept. People at Harvard are so smart, so this must be true, right? No need to further question why a paper with numbers on, written by another highly unbalanced and emotional human being, should be the mere qualification for so-called higher jobs, which will enable you to talk bad about people with a worse job even though you are fully depending on that person's work. Also, Disney has got you thinking that everyone out there wakes up with glittery eye makeup, just ready to be kidnapped by a charming prince. When in reality most kidnappers aren't rich and charming. What a bummer. Netflix published several series glorifying pedophile tendencies, for example in the new show called Cuties. Shows like 365 Days normalize sexually abusive behaviors by depicting yet another Stockholm Syndrome story of a victim falling in love with their kidnapper. Since the COVID-19 crisis, mounting data suggests that domestic abuse is acting like an opportunistic infection, flourishing in the conditions created by the pandemic up to around 60% more. Publishing series like that is very tasteless at the expense of real-life victims. Like that, big media like Netflix play into the ongoing normalization of highly problematic social issues and make pointing them out seem hysteric. After this odyssey of me blaming the system, you might feel like you are free from personal responsibility, but that, my dear, is not the case. As much as I hate to tell you, unwillingly or not, if you are not actively rebelling against the so-called system, aka capitalism, yes, I said it, you are part of exactly that. But here's the good thing, personality is not a constant factor. Because guess what? You are an autonomous being. You can decide to change, you can decide to be part of a difference. And you better be. We are slowly coming to an end of this guided reality check, and for the cool down I would like to ask you to stand up and move your body a little bit to my latest song.